What's up, guys? On today's podcast, I got Luke Miller. We talk about the comparisons between golf and life, and he tells us what he shot with a round of only using his driver. What's up, Luke?
What's up, Grubb?
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, I nailed that.
You did.
I mean,
did you practice it the whole way?
All night. I lost sleep.
Well, do you wish you had a Doug Eklund voice right now?
Yeah, I sound like, Owen Wilson when he's hungover. So it is what it is.
Well, it works. All right, so I want to jump right to my favorite legend, the legend of the driver round.
Right.
Will you tell us how this came about? Because there's a legend that you played Des Moines Golf, South Course, with only a driver. Tell us the story.
Yeah, so that is true. The way it came about was, I don't remember who was in the group exactly. I think Ben Beecher, Tim Vineyard, a couple guys that are Iowa ortho surgeons were with me. And we were on the first tee. It was just like a Wednesday. Would have been 2015, probably, the summer of 2015. And I'm known to do some stupid things on the golf course anyway, maybe some very low percentage shots and things like that. But I've always hit driver off the deck on par fives when needed and felt good about it. And somebody brought up on that tee, wait, have you ever played an entire hole or an entire round with a driver? I'm like, I'm sure I have. In college, we did that stuff. But I was like, I'm just gonna, let's do it today. And they were like, no, you don't have to do it today. I'm like, I'm bored some days. Let's do it. So I hit every shot with the driver. I teed it up on the tees, par threes and everything like that. And then everything else was on the ground. And, I shot 82.
And what happened on 18?
Well, so I was 8 over. I believe I was 8 over through 17 holes. And I'm thinking I've birdied 2 par fives on the back, 13 and 16 on the south. And I'm like, if I can make a birdie here and shoot in the 70s, it would be epic. And I doubled it, playing pretty aggressive. And I ended up in a bunker. I had to go out sideways. It turns out driver out of a bunker it's just not a good play.
Was that the only time you ended up in a bunker, or were there others?
No, I think I avoided all but that one and one other one. And it's interesting because after the aftermath of this was sort of talking about how dumb of an idea it was in the first place. What a waste of 4 hours. But for me, it's always fun to do things like that. My whole life, I've loved trying stuff different on the golf course, but it is course management to a T. I had to avoid bunkers at all costs, not something you look at as absolute death on the golf course normally. Greenside bunkers, not that big of a deal usually, but if you have a driver, you have to look for the place where the machine drug the sand out of the, up over the lip. So there's no lip. You got to hit backwards out of them. I started thinking about things like that. I started playing very safe, obviously 150 yards. It's kind of hard to place a driver exactly where you want. So just playing to it was really good. It was fun.
You said you would pick a number that you knew you could basically punch a driver, and you just kept hitting.
Yeah, like par fours. So there's par fours out there playing from the green tees where a driver leaves you 100 yards. But that is not the number, as it turns out. You do not want to hit driver from 100 yards ever. So, I remember a lot of times just laying up off the tee to, 200 yards, 220 yards, 180 yards, where I could take more of a full swing and run it up. And there's some courses where you just couldn't do that. Des Moines Golf has a lot of run-ups and some necks, continuous fairway up to the green that you can run a ball up onto the green. If you played more challenging courses with forced carries and stuff, I couldn't probably finish the round. I'd run out of balls. But I think I played it with one ball. I don't think I lost a ball. Most of the trouble's off the tee anyway. But I did it with one ball. And I still think to this day, I could go back out and do it again. I did play 9 more holes on a bet in maybe 2017 out there, and I got in a world of trouble on 3 south.
It would be one blow up, right?
Yeah, that's all it takes. Yeah, and I totally admit, I could shoot 130 if things go sideways. But the first time I tried it that random day, it was fun. It worked out. So give our listeners a little bit of a background to sort of your career. I mean, you were a professional golfer.
I think right now you're a +4 handicap today. So give us sort of a brief history of your golf career, golf journey to this point.
Yeah. So I played a bunch of sports growing up, not particularly great at anything. I loved basketball. I always actually thought, as a kid, with the practice I was putting in, that I'd get better at basketball and be able to play at Iowa or something like that. That was my dream if you would ask me when I was 12, 13 years old. And my dad was big into golf, huge supporter of whatever I wanted to do, but he always sort of, encouraged me to join him on the course to practice and things like that. And once I got to high school, played at Valley. Oddly enough, I qualified for the team, 16-man team. There was a big tryout as a freshman, played JV and varsity. The next year, I didn't make the top 16. We had a new coach. He had a different format. I played terrible. I was playing baseball all summer, not worried about it. And I didn't make the 16-man team as a sophomore. And that was sort of my first turning point with golf would have been that year, realizing that my friends are out there playing in the fall and I had nothing to do. Obviously, I'm not a football player. It wasn't like I was going to go out for football or anything like that. So I kind of quit most of the other sports around that time. I was, I was like a B teamer for basketball and other stuff. So I had fun, but I played outfield, played baseball, but we had Nate Yoho at Valley and just a little bit better than me, it turns out.
Good arm.
Yeah.
Left.
And I had wheels, but I couldn't even get the ball to second without a hop. So
yeah,
that was never going to be it. So anyway, I finished my career at Valley and moved on and played at University of Iowa, played 4 years there and turned pro after University of Iowa. Moved to Scottsdale and did the mini tour thing, sort of the minor leagues of golf and tried to make a career of it.
We've talked about this. Everybody would think, oh man, what a great job. You get to play golf every day. But the reality is you're not always playing good golf. Life's not always going the way that you want it. And you're playing to pay for your rent. I mean, what is that like, just sort of grinding out on those mini tours, really from a mental capacity of that's what you're doing for a living now, not just playing it for fun?
Yeah. In hindsight, with all the things I've learned over the years, I would have handled it differently, but there's a lot of pressure that was very foreign. Through college golf, you're playing in these big tournaments, Division I tournaments. You're trying to improve every week, every year and things like that. And then you get out there and you realize, based on the sponsor money I had some sponsor money, but the idea it would be a lot easier if you were just independently wealthy out there playing the game the way you've always played it. But as soon as money became a factor, even if you tried to ignore it, I was doing that to continue paying the rent and to pay sponsors back and to appease the people that invested money in me to do this and things like that. And it starts to weigh on you. I mean, you end up with 5-footers to make a cut, and that just means $0 earned for the week versus a minimum of whatever the last place guy to make the cut is, which is a couple grand and all the way up. The guys winning those tournaments back then were winning $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for a 3-day tournament. But if you played the first 2 days and you weren't, 2, 3, 4 under, you missed the cut, you made $0, And then you go, for me, I had a side job. I needed a place to play and practice. So I was valeting cars 2 or 3 days a week and cleaning clubs at Desert Mountain down in Scottsdale. So I'd miss a cut and try to pick up an extra shift on Sunday. While those guys are out there playing the final round, I'm like back at work trying to make some money, or I'm using that day to practice and things like that. But it was just this, for a lot of guys, it's a huge struggle. It's not glamorous at all. And it starts to wear on you if you don't continue improving and making money and, getting that feedback from sponsors. The feedback was ultimately like, hey, you're doing a good job. We're going to give you some more money next year. You have people that are supporting you that want you to do well, but they're not going to just keep throwing money at something. A guy who misses every cut by 1, which seemed to be where I ended up. Like if the cut was 3 under that week, I was like, I shot 2 under, $0. I was right there.
Is there camaraderie to those mini tours to where, if you're playing minor league baseball or you're trying to play football or other sports or team sports, so you have other guys you're going through that process with? I mean, is there camaraderie with other guys that you start to connect with others, or is it just that competitive and it's sort of a lonely journey?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think looking back, there were a few friends I had. There was a lot of guys that, encouraged you to play, patted you on the back when you played well. And then there were guys that you really didn't know at all. Could play a lot of rounds. They really kept to themselves. It's just everyone had their own process of, their way of dealing with it, getting out there, improving. And so, I ended up with some friends. A lot of them were guys that I worked with actually at the club at Desert Mountain that were going through the same struggle that I was. But the beauty of golf is like everyone loves good golf and you just hate to see bad golf. So it's never like you're not necessarily rooting against the guys you're playing with when they're struggling and you're not like a huge cheerleader, but the good news is that as people got better around me, I always used that as a gauge at that time of like, okay, this guy's getting better and he's starting to qualify for nationwide events and getting into whatever, played a few tour events. I need to, take a closer look at this guy's game. That was where the camaraderie came. It was like everyone did sort of encourage people on those mini tours, like get better, practice together. Here's how I hit this shot. Here's what we're doing on the road and things like that. And that was great. But at the end of the day, those are the guys that are taking the money out of your pocket. The guys who beat you by one, right, and lower the cut by one or whatever. Yeah, that was a tough balance back then. Is like, your friend makes a cut and you don't, and you're like, man, that's great. And they
I
say
can't
like,
pay my rent now.
Do you want to come, Luke? Do you want to come caddy for me on Sunday? And I'm like, no, I don't want to come caddy for you on Sunday. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So there's a balance there.
It would be, I feel a really challenging part is anything, right? Like you're chasing your dream. At some point, you quit all your other sports, all your focus got to this. You realize, man, I'm really good at this. I think there's a future for this. You leave school, right? And now you're going to go do this professionally. All your friends are going and moving to Chicago, Des Moines, New York, whatever. They're getting jobs. They're going on to further education. And now you're living in Scottsdale, which is great, but you're grinding out these mini tours. How do you get to a place where you've committed your whole life to a dream? And how do you wrestle with sort of that moment of, because I feel like the naysayer would be, hey, Luke, that's nice. You're good at golf, but you need to get a real job, boy,
Yeah.
And then there's also the encouragement of like, no, go chase your dream, like make the best of it. How do you come to terms with that in your own mind? And do you sort of recall that wrestle or that moment that, you know what, I'm going to go back, I'm going to get a job. Like, how did you wrestle through that?
Yeah. First, I always tell everybody, I've always said it, like I regret none of it. To be able to do that and looking back on it, knowing that like I gave it a shot, given my situation, financially, whatever, like I gave, I did what I could do with it, and it ended up being 3 years, 3 seasons. But the doubt always came with the bad times, right? So you play 4 tournaments in 1 month, you play every week, you get ready, you miss 3 of the cuts, you miss all 4 cuts, whatever. That's when stuff like that started to creep in. Like, gosh, like I went to, I have a degree, I had job opportunities that I bypassed to do this. I'm watching my friends live comfortably and travel. Sometimes it was coming to travel to see me and play golf in Scottsdale, which was great. But I was kind of on an island. You end up realizing that if you spend your money, the little money you have on doing the things that your friends are doing at age 23 and 24 with their good jobs, it's only going to hurt my goal for golf. And so that happened a lot. There was a lot of stages of like, should I do this or should I not? And then this next season rolls around. Can I get sponsor money together? Can I not? Should I start applying for jobs? And eventually it got to a point where I realized like the weight of the situation, being broke essentially, and the struggle sort of was too much for me to want to continue. You see these guys out there doing it on the mini tours 15 years later after college, and they really don't have a life. They have their friends on the tour, people they know that work for the tour, but they just travel around, and that was not what I wanted. I definitely wanted to make it a career and work my way up, but I wasn't getting better, and I was broke, and it's just this never ending mental thing for you. You want to do this. And I believed in myself through all of that, but it comes a time where you have to make a right decision for 20 years from now. You know, do I want to have a wife and kids and a stable life and support a family? And can I do this through golf? And maybe I could have, sometimes you think maybe if I would have done it one more year, I would have caught fire, which happens in golf. It just takes a guy getting hot, even if you're on the mini tours and you rattle off a couple wins and you get to the next level on the web.com Corn Ferry Tour, what it is now, and you win once on there, you're getting invited to PGA Tour events. That can happen in one season. And so I've never stopped thinking about that either. But at the same time, like the realistic side of me made a decision that a good job offer came along in the industry that I'm still in, same company I've always worked for. And it was like an entry level job, but it wasn't that much money, but it seemed like I was a millionaire coming from 3 years of being broke. All of a sudden I had this job. They gave me a Chevy Equinox to drive around. I'm like, oh my gosh, like my Jeep's worth, $20 at this point, falling apart. So it wasn't a financial decision. It was more like a life decision long term. I just didn't want to be that guy who was still trying, and had missed out on everything else in life. So
you'd almost have to refocus, right? I mean, there would be sort of like a repurposing, a refocus. How did sort of the tools that you learned playing golf, and so much of it is mentally overcoming loss or mentally overcoming a bad bounce? Like one of my favorite quotes, and I kind of call them my like Scott Hart isms, but he always tells me, he's like, hey, enjoy playing well because you're only a couple swings away from things going really bad and you're going to play your worst golf. But when you're playing your worst golf, like keep swinging, right? Because you're 2 swings away from playing your best golf. And that not only translates from my golf game, but in life. And the thing I like about golf is I get those reps. Like I mentally have to be able to overcome adversity on the course, which sort of sounds silly, not saying that adversity on the course is similar to life, but I think the repetition of the mental process of overcoming that is similar. What were some of the key things that you felt like your golf game prepared you for the business world?
Sure. Yeah. I've had those discussions back in the day in interviewing, when I was interviewing, looking for jobs to get out of the golf world. One thing that always stood out to me is the pressure. I mean, it's hard to understand when it's just this solo sport like golf and you're out there trying to pay the rent, pay the bills by making cuts and things like that and making that last putt. The pressure that comes with that exceeds anything I've experienced professionally in my career since then. And even at that time, I work in surgery with a medical device company, and we sometimes get put in pressure situations in surgery where we have to have, the right troubleshooting answers and things like that. And that was one thing that was asked of me while I was interviewing back then was, how are you going to handle pressure? You have no work experience. You've been golfing. People who don't understand it do view golf as like, oh, he was playing a game for 3 years, chasing his dream. Well, the pressure and being able to handle the nerves, I improved every year. In high school, I was a nervous wreck. I think I had a decent amount of talent, but like everything I did was to calm my nerves in high school. And the idea was to get to a point where the nerves were just part of the game and you just appreciated it. It almost made me better. The focus that comes with that nervousness ended up making me better. And so to be able to translate, to take that and apply that to what I do on a daily basis now has been huge, because to me, the pressure of making whatever you call it, a 6-foot putt to pay the rent, versus what I face, needing to be an expert in certain situations is not close to me. It's not that it's easy what I do now, but in terms of pressure, I feel like I handle pressure and I'm able to keep my calm very well and to let it sort of roll off my back. So that goes not just for my career, but that's a great thing to look at in your life. Like, how are you remaining calm, thinking clearly, things at home, things with friends in need, like, tough situations. It all goes into the same bucket for me, where if you just can compartmentalize that pressure and say, this pressure's okay, this is normal. I don't feel rattled by this. Let's just harness this energy that comes along with that and turn it into something good. So that is easily number one on my list in terms of the tools that came from golf. And I use that daily. So
it's perspective, right? That's where I think at least for me from, the business world, like it's interesting. We were talking about this yesterday. You got a guy who is a 12 handicap. He never practices. And he hits 4 bad shots and he's throwing his clubs. He's cussing, he's damaging the course, like slamming his club in the ground. And there's nothing about him that is a good golfer or should be a good golfer, but his perception and perspective on it is just way out of whack. And what I always think is funny too is that a guy will spend $1,000 or $500 on golf clubs and golf lessons, but then he gets the same opportunity to go to Dallas to a training course that's going to better him in his career. And he's like, nah, I'm not going to spend the money on that, but I'll spend the $1,000 where I'm never going to make $1, right? And one of my favorite Scott Hart isms is I forget where we're at. It was like 13, 14 south. And I hit a bomb drive, 330. I mean, just smoked it and get up there. I even got my number that I wanted. I was like 80 yards out, chili dip at 30 yards. Slam my club on the ground, slam it again, slam it against my bag, slam it in the cart, in the bag. And I sit down in the cart and Scott Hart just like puts his arm around me. He goes, Grubb, do you practice more than me? I was like, no. He goes, well, until then, you can't get more mad than me. and it was the weirdest thing. I mean, ever since that, that moment, it gave me new perspective, not only in my golf game, but even in some of the greater adversities that I feel at work or in life, that if you really put it into perspective, it's not that much pressure. Or it's not that bad. Right. Like that's my probably favorite correlation between golf and life.
Sure. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you are, we've known each other since when? I don't know. Kindergarten, elementary school. So you're a talented, athletic guy, right? I mean, if I could hit the ball as far as you, that'd be great. Maybe that would have helped me get on tour. Who knows? But the talent, this is that's a great story and a lesson for work, especially when you're running an operation like this and you're continuing to, find ways to motivate the people around you that are working for you and with you. Talent is great. It's a good thing to seek out. And then how people harness that and their perspective on their talent. Like if they already think they have it, it doesn't help, right? It's a different way of saying what Hart said. I've always believed like it's great to be talented, right? I felt like I was a talented golfer, but if I wasn't continuing to improve and use and take my talent and mix it with other things like you said, like perspective and just sort of a better attitude towards why am I not better, right? Well, you already have the talent. What are you doing mentally? And what are you doing as a person to deal with this and to create like a good bucket of tools? So talent, I mean, hard work, the practice that he talks about, hard work in golf and in work does outweigh talent. You want to recruit talented people to work with you and for you, but the hardworking people are unbeatable, in my opinion. The hardest working guy in golf will get better than the most talented guy over time.
But it's not even so much hard work as it is growth. I heard one of the SEAL Team 6 guys speak earlier this year, and I cannot remember his name, unfortunately, right now. But he said complacency kills, and it's written in blood, right? So on your golf game, if you're not working on your game and playing more and getting better, you're going to get worse.
For sure.
Right? And it's the same thing at work. If you're not working on your game at the office or fine-tuning your skills or mentally getting better, you're just going to get complacent and you're going to get passed up. I mean, that's the thing I love about, listening to like a Brooks Koepka or a Tiger Woods or any one of these guys that are great. Like like Tiger, one of my favorite Tiger sort of stories, he was the best player in the world. He wins whatever, 4, 5, 6 majors. And early in his career, if you remember he redid his grip and swing. like
multiple times.
Right.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, it's over. What's he doing? This is it.
Yeah.
And he hit some downsides, but he knew that he had to continue to find that growth and just continue to get better at his game. But I feel like it's the same thing at work. It's the same thing at you know, no matter what it is that you're doing, complacency kills and you got to continue to grow. And that's what I think that hard work really is. And sometimes the hard work is really looking at yourself saying, I need to get better.
Yeah, sure. I mean, lessons learned, right? That's what it all goes back to. You can have the talent, put the hard work in, and then what do you do with lessons? Like, how do you handle the tough times at work? How do you handle, critiques of what you're doing or feedback from a manager or whatever? And people who grow from that and continue to stay invested in themselves within their career or whatever are the ones who rise to the top, who come out on top. So
I'm thinking about this as we're talking. It's probably the same thing. If you look at somebody says, hey, I want to get better at this at work. All right, what are you investing your time in then? It's probably not in the things that are going to get you better. Same thing for golf. You go to the range, what are dudes doing?
Just rip and driver.
Oh, nonstop.
It kills me.
What's the only thing that's going to get your game any better?
Your short game and your putting.
Period.
Yeah.
Right.
Not close.
And it is the small things. And as we're talking, I think that sort of connection resonates because I feel like in work and people's professional life, they're sort of in a way metaphorically wanting to rip drivers. Like, Mo, I need to either get this new job or I need to get this new office or I need to get, a new truck or there's something or event, some big, if I could only hit the drive 330, I'd still be playing pro golf, right?
Yeah, I get it.
And in the end, it is about chipping and putting. And at work, it is about doing the small things, the detailed things that add up over time. When I was living down in Scottsdale, I was playing baseball at Scottsdale Community College there for a few minutes. And Barry Larkin was at one of our practices. He's out in the outfield taking fly balls with us. And he just flat out said to us, he said, the only difference between you and me is I do it one more time a week. That's it. I get one more hit a week. I get one more ground ball a week. I make one more catch a week. I get one more base a week. I get one more rep. I get one more workout. I run one more mile. All I do is just one more than you. And that's the difference between me being a Hall of Famer and you being a washed up community college. He didn't say that part, but that's the difference. That's
sure.
And think of a guy like Zach Johnson, right? To your point, he's a guy that got hot at the right time, got the opportunity and stayed hot. What was he? 4th on his college?
Yeah, that story changes, but he was not the best golfer on the Drake golf team for sure. Regardless of where he fell in the lineup, I don't know. But he's also a guy who his first trip down to Florida, he wasn't doing that well. He played on what was then the Hooters Tour, and he's a great story more than most people realize because he did not just take off right after college. I mean, I believe the story was he struggled for a year or two, came back, raised some more money from the guys in Cedar Rapids. I mean, he worked at Golf Galaxy in West Des Moines, Iowa one summer with me. I mean, all he did was clock in and hit balls in the back mostly, but I mean, it's not like he just had this crazy rise. He grinded and he found something that worked for him, obviously, because once he did take off, he won a bunch of times on the Hooters Tour and then straight to Nationwide and won the Bell South Classic, I think it was. I'm not sure on that, but I think his first PGA win was either the Honda or the Bell South Classic. And then 2 years later, he wins the Masters. So that time frame right there is insane.
We definitely need a fact checker.
Yeah, we do. we need a sidekick here.
Koepka's similar, right?
Sure.
Koepka's similar.
Well, he's his own. I mean, he's a beast in a different way than we've even seen from Tiger. I mean, Tiger wanted people to believe that he was like this robotic, flawless golfer, but Tiger was an emotional player, like so much intensity, right? Golf was his entire life. Koepka is ice cold. I mean, he has no nerves. I mean, he has nerves, but they never show. He's so clutch and calm and collected, and he treats it more like work maybe than even Tiger. I still think Tiger, 100 years from now will be the best golfer of all time in most people's eyes. But Koepka's going to win more majors, and it's because he's so surgical with what he does. He won't kiss his girlfriend, whatever her name is, walking into the final round. I can't remember what tournament that was last year, but that cracked me up. He pushed her. She wanted to be on camera and give him a kiss. That's just him from the time he wakes up till his round is over or the tournament's over. He's just this ice cold person. I think he's actually a pretty good guy and definitely misunderstood. That's just my gut. But when he's golfing, it is absolutely work, and there is nothing else going on in the world. He doesn't care in those moments about the fame and things, which I think Tiger always did. Like, he wanted everyone to think everything that he did was, molded around this best golfer on the planet. Whereas Koepka just wants to destroy people. He's just, he wants his check. He wants that 1.7 million or whatever. And afterwards, I think he's a normal guy, but he's not normal at all on the golf course.
That's something about Brooks that I like, and maybe is uniquely different than Tiger, is to not overvalue the positive. So where Koepka could make, he could make a double bogey and he can make a huge birdie to take the lead and doesn't value one any greater than the other. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Where guys will be like, oh man, I don't care what people think of me. But yet they're the first ones to go out front in front of the reporters to be told how great they played, but then they play bad. And it's like, I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm just playing my own game. Where like Koepka is at least authentic in the reality that he doesn't chase the positive and overvalue the positive. So then when the negative happens, he's able to just, if you had the sound off and you didn't see what score, you just saw the shot, it is so even keel. But at the same thing at work, and I think in life, if you overvalue the positive, then that negativity comes, and now you're trying to sort of like devalue it because you overvalue the positive. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And golf is so much that, where the easiest thing to do is you make a birdie or you make two birdies, and what do? You get complacent. You think, man, I'm playing great. And then you get that bad bounce, and then you just see dudes spin out on the golf course. They make a birdie, make some nice shots, and then the second they get that little bit of adversity, it's almost like the drug wears off, and like the hangover is so bad, and you can just see guys spin out. And I'm king of that. That's why I can articulate on this topic fairly
There's a
well.
lot of people who are the king of that, by the way. That is like amateur golf in a nutshell right there. It's just the meltdown's coming. I think that the pros have that too, but they hide it so well. And it cracks me up to watch it happen. I don't ever want to see people play bad golf, but I have friends. I play with a wide range of handicaps, and it's coming. The guy who's a bogey golfer, he is so pumped that he shot 40 on the front. It's his lowest 9 of the year, but it's coming. It's like a math. It's math. Right. This guy always shoots 90. It's no coming. What. Yeah. Right. And so you hate to see it, but it's really true that the difference between even the guys on tour who aren't winning that much and somebody like Koepka is you've got 72 holes, 4 days. You sleep 3 times in the middle of the golf tournament. That's not something that would ever happen in really any other sport, right? There's these crazy, grueling endurance sports, but it's all at once, right? You run your marathon and it's over, or ultra marathon or an Ironman, whatever. It's nonstop. Golf, you get the lead, you get to sleep on it. You keep the lead, you get to sleep on it. You blow up on Saturday, and now you're in 3rd place. You get to sleep on that and rebound. And so a guy like Koepka, I believe he views it as 72 holes. He's a guy where if he had a 9-shot lead going into Sunday, his goal is still to just shoot the best score. It's not to lose by 8 just to win by 1. And I think that's the big difference. That's the same thing, like you're saying, that you could apply to a career, right? It's the big picture. A bad day at work doesn't do anything, really. Either your choices are leave the job or just play the long game and realize that it ebbs and flows. And so the guys who do that in golf, the guys who do that with their careers, do so much better.
Yeah, don't let a string of bad shots turn into bad holes and then a bad round, similar to life, right? Like don't let a string of bad days turn into bad months. And then all of a sudden you're like, how did I even get to this? But I think it goes back to the previous topic. It is perspective.
Sure.
It's the lens in which you see the game. And if you just start buying into the fact that, I'm going to just keep doubling ever whole. And that's where I try to dig out mentally. Like, the thing I love about golf the best is if I now make a double, which they come, it's just part of my game. That's the benefit of hitting a longer ball. Is that's the downside, right? That's the vulnerability of it is
sure.
I got to keep it in bounds. And if I don't, the doubles can come in waves, but overcoming, there's almost nothing better than making a birdie after a double or making a birdie after a bogey. Cause I know like I got it in check quick and right away. And bad shots didn't lead to, a bad round or a bad day. And I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's tracked statistically on the PGA Tour, bounce back.
Really?
Right? It's not a stat that's talked about a lot, but they keep those statistics. And so you've got the same thing working in everyone's life and career, right? Like, how do you respond? You talk about adversity and, growth and things like that. Golf is truly a game that you can make so many comparisons to life and your career or whatever. So when you talk about that, I always think of like, how do you respond when things go bad at work? It's just a very easy decision that people make. They think it's complicated, but you either go the growth route or the misery route. Right? Like, this is bad. I messed up. I've lost value or whatever. I have to reprove myself. Or you just view those things as an opportunity for growth. So that happens, like I said, that happens at home, at work, on the golf course. And it's so similar.
And it's a choice.
Yeah. You just have this moment, and it's hard to take a deep breath when things aren't going well, but you have a moment where you can go two ways.
Right.
Always. And I feel very lucky that I've slowly, placed that more and more in my life to keep a clear mind and like a long-term picture, because I am someone who historically was reactive more when I was younger. Like, oh, this is, what have I done? This is bad. Bad just means bad, but bad really doesn't mean that at all. Bad just means, what can I do to avoid this in the future, to react better for everyone involved in the future? And I just love that, because we're all incredibly flawed, obviously, in a lot of ways. And so, bad stuff never stops happening. Bad days never stop happening. But if you can spin a bad day by the time you go to bed into telling yourself it was a good day, doing something for yourself, doing something for your spouse and your kids, perspective on what's really important and things like that. I've worked really hard on that in the last couple of years, where it's all good.
Right.
If you tell yourself that and you put the time in and the work on yourself. So
12 handicap guy, one sentence. What piece of advice do you give him to get his game better?
12 handicap, probably the same for everybody. Putting is something that everyone thinks they're better at than they are, me included. I mean, I think it helps me thinking that I'm a great putter. The confidence is important to a certain extent, but most people are just lucky. They make a couple 20 footers and they think, oh, I figured my putting out. Well, it's just statistically, it's not going to continue. So like we said earlier, putting in short game is such an easy canned answer. But if I was to get specific, I would work on the basic mechanics of a putting stroke with somebody. That's sort of that's the first go-to. It's something I'm very dialed into when I look at someone putt. They use their hands too much. They're not using their big muscles. They have parts moving that don't need to be moving. They don't take it back far enough, so they flick their wrists at it. You see everything, but the putting stroke, people just complicate it. Different grips. Should I get a bigger grip? I don't know. Get comfortable. Just buy a putter that makes you comfortable. Let it rest in your hands, whatever feels most comfortable, and then just basically rock your shoulders. It's not that easy, but those are the basics of if people would just do that and not go to the range. And if they have 3 times a week that they go out to the club or a public, driving range or whatever, don't even take your clubs at first. So the people that want to get better and say they're going to the range, they just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
It's like anything. If you don't seek help from the experts or instructors and things like that, you'll just lead yourself down the wrong path with golf every time. So, and the worst part is, this is just a gripe I have in general, is when you were talking about going out to the range and watching guys beat driver, even if it's not driver, they're just swinging repeatedly, no rest. They're fatiguing their muscles. They're sweating. Their divots are going in every different direction. You know, their clubs are laying all over it. That's not even how the game is played. Hit a shot, reset, practice your setup, practice things like your breathing and your alignment, and feel how your shoulders feel and your feet feel on the ground. You shouldn't be hitting a ball more than once every 45 seconds. And you just see people raking balls and swinging violently, and eventually they get exhausted and go home. And what they've done is create a new set of bad habits that didn't exist before their range session. So not only are they not getting better, they might be getting worse. So, well,
good stuff, man.
Yeah, this is good.
I appreciate you coming out. Let's do this again when we're in golf season.
Yeah, I think it's great you're doing this.
Thanks, man.
Like, podcasts to me are, the future. They're just, every day there's more and more people with podcasts. So when I heard you had a podcast, I was like, well, I need a podcast now. I don't have the setup or the cool name, but
we'll get it worked out.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Luke. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks,
bud.
man.
Yep.